Good afternoon. Thank you for joining this session on developing careers in health informatics and health information technology. I will now turn it over to Dr. Zhe He of Florida State University.
Hello, everyone. I think probably we can still wait maybe for a minute or two to just wait for people to join, and then we can get started. Start sharing slide. Okay. Okay, so can you see my slide?
Yes, I can see it.
Okay, perfect. Okay, I think we can get started. So hello, everyone. Welcome to the session, Developing Career in Health Informatics and Health Information Technology. My name is Zhe He. I'm Associate Professor from School of Information at Florida State University. I'm really happy to be able to organize this meeting because we're just such in a great time for having a career in health informatics and health IT. So first of all, let me spend a few minutes to talk about why we do this and who we are. And FSU is short for Florida State University. It is a public research university in the state of Florida in the United States. It was founded in 1851, which is the oldest university in Florida. And it is classified as a research university with very high research by Carnegie Foundation. And currently, according to US News and World Report, it is ranked at number 55 overall ranking and number 19 among all the public universities. And the Information School at Florida State University is a founding member of iSchool organization. And our mission is to recognize the profound importance of connecting people, information, and technology for the betterment of society. And we have provided continuous 25 years of online education. And currently we have a bachelor program in information technology, master program in information technology and information, and also PhD in information. At the same time, along with these programs, we also offer graduate certificate in health informatics and undergraduate certificate in health information technology. So basically, the idea of doing this career panel really made me really excited because we're in such great time for health IT and health informatics. Informatics is a disciplinary field that has witnessed rapid growth and evolution over the past decade, especially between the last 10 years till now. We have seen tremendous amount of growth. And according to US Bureau for Labor Statistics, it is predicted that a 21% increase in the employment of health informatics will happen between the year 2010 and 2020. So especially in the recent few years, with the advent of mobile health, big data, artificial intelligence, and there are more and more opportunities in healthcare arise. And however, there's a lot of gaps between the demand of job available in the market and also the people who have adequate training to fulfill those job vacancies. So career development advice is very important and very much needed more than ever. So here in today's panel, we want to give you some idea and perspectives about different career options and different way of advancing your career in different trajectories. So I'm gonna spend a few minutes to introduce our panelists, and then each of them will introduce their own career trajectories and give us the lesson learned. And then we'll have some time for us to have a Q&A with our audience in this room. So here we have 5 panelists. Along with me, we have Dr. Mia Lustria, Dr. Zichen Wang, Jeremy Halper, and Benny Harris. And Dr. Mia Lustria is a professor in the School of Information, and she has over 20 plus years of health communication research experience, especially in the area of health informatics and persuasive technology. And Jeremy Harper is a biomedical informatician who works with healthcare organizations to optimize and improve their business. He has installed EHR systems, have previously served as a clinical research information officer, and is now an independent consultant. He also does applied machine learning projects and launched a website called autograntwriter.com this year. And Benny Harris is a graduate of University of South Carolina School of Public Health and FSU School of Information with a Master of Science in Information Technology, specializing in large data management. During his career, he has worked with the public health and the laboratory databases. Now he is managing Power BI dashboards and develops infectious disease laboratory software requirements for the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. So first of all, let me spend a few minutes to talk about my career trajectories, and then I'll give opportunity to each of the panelists to talk about their own trajectories and their advice. So I came to the United States after finishing my bachelor in computer science in 2007 from Beijing University of Post Telecommunication. And then I pursued a master in computer science from Columbia and finished my degree in 2009. And after that, I joined NJIT, New Jersey Institute of Technology, and did a PhD in computer science. During my PhD studies, I was mostly focused on developing semantic and structural methods to improve the quality of biomedical ontologies and control vocabularies. And after I finished my PhD, I moved on to Columbia and moved back to Columbia again and did a postdoc within the Department of Biomedical Informatics, which is the oldest department in a country. And I work with a professor, Dr. Chunhua Wang, and developing informatics methods to understand how to assess the generalizability of clinical studies and develop tools to optimize clinical trial eligibility criteria to facilitate such analysis. And after that, I joined FSU in 2015 and started my independent research career. I was at an assistant professor level between 2015 to 2020, and I was promoted to associate professor in 2020. And now I'm still with FSU and doing informatics research here. So here's my current job. As a tenured associate professor at FSU, I primarily have 3 different types of responsibilities. So in teaching, I'm teaching data mining and data analytics classes on both graduate level and undergraduate level. I'm also teaching health informatics courses in both graduate level and undergraduate level as well. So for research, my research mostly focuses on biomedical and health informatics, and I use medical data to help with decision-making and improve population health. So currently I have 3 major research topics, and in the first topic, which is on health clinical research informatics. I'm mostly focused on developing methods and tools to facilitate the analysis of clinical trial generalizability. So we leverage data from hospitals, and then we look at clinical trial registry records, and then trying to map those information and identify the population subgroups that are underrepresented by clinical trials. So in another area, artificial intelligence in medicine, we're trying to use real-world data to build prediction models using machine learning algorithms, and then providing such information back to clinicians for them to make some decision to aid them in their decision-making for patients. And in general, we're also interested in improving the transparency and interpretability of machine learning models to help them better use the results from those machine learning models. And also in consumer health informatics, I'm also very interested in looking at ways to bridging the terminology and the language gap between professionals and health consumers. And recently, we also are really interested in looking at how to improve patient information seeking by providing tailored information support to help patients better understand things like lab test results data. So as a researcher and as a professor here, I'm also serving on multiple different committees at school level and at university level. I'm helping with different tasks, and I serve as committee members in education committee, evaluation promotion committee, and also I'm also management board member of the Research Computing Center, which essentially deal with creating infrastructure to help researchers at FSU using the large scale computing infrastructure. And also I'm serving as a informatics lead at University of Florida State University Clinical Translational Science Award. So with this capacity, I'm building the capacity of health data science and also help researchers at FSU use informatics approaches to solve some of the problem in their research. So at the community level, I'm also serving as secretary of AMIA, which is short for American Medical Informatics Association, KDDM, Knowledge Discovery and Data Mining Working Group, and I'm trying to really kind of create different opportunities and different events, like webinars and creating workshops in AMIA to help patients connect each other and work together, collaborate on data mining projects. So why do I choose academic career? Most of the impact actually came from my family. I grew up on college campus, and my father was a college professor. So when I was really young, I already decided that I want to be a professor in the future. So I didn't really have to choose a lot between academic job and industry job. And also I have a lot of sense of accomplishment from my students. Whenever my students told me that they found a good job and they were able to advance their career because he or she learned a lot from my classes, from my courses, I feel very happy about those. And within FSU, I have a few graduate students who finished the PhD degree, and then they pursue academic career in different prestigious universities. And those also give me a lot of accomplishment, and I'm really happy about those. And also, I think my research has some positive impact on population health and biomedical informatics research. And there are definitely pros and cons in pursuing academic career. People oftentimes think about stability, having freedom to do different type of research you want, and also having flexibility of spending different your time on different things. And also because our work are published in widely distributed and available academic journals, conferences. So we do have a pretty good visibility of our work. But certainly those pros are not without disadvantages and not without cons. We constantly feel that we have to work all the time, and there's no time that we can just leave work outside of our life. So oftentimes we have to mingle our life and work and keep thinking about problems and keep trying to solve problems all the time. And for many people, it's also a job with a lot of pressure, especially on the tenure track position. You have only limited amount of time to show your good work and to show that work can be published, to show that you can get grant funding to support some of your research. So all of this put together can potentially create a lot of pressure. But I do want to give a few tips for people who are potentially pursuing this career. I think being an academic researcher is a privilege, and I do enjoy this a lot. But I do think that in order to be happy, you need to identify research direction that you are passionate about, because doing research is very difficult, and you have to spend a lot of time on this. And if you don't do something that you're interested in, it's really difficult to keep on. And also have found a good place that values work is very important, because you want to make sure that your work is valued by your colleagues, by your institution, so that you feel supported. And also you have to find out the research time and work hard. With a lot of things happening in your life, oftentimes you have to pick up those different slots that you can use in order to make things happen. So definitely carve out research time, sometimes quite challenging. But I think building research network and the support network is so important. Having mentors, colleagues, and friends and family to support you in different ways. I think this is really critical. And I'm really fortunate to have those people around me and supporting me along the way. So I feel I'm really well supported. And also you have to balance your own research and your collaboration with different people and the mentoring, because they require different, they all require a lot of time. So if you don't create a good balance, it's easy to leave something behind. And another final tips I have for this is perseverance. I think my advisors usually told me that perseverance is the most important quality of being a successful researcher, because our work are constantly being evaluated, and oftentimes we receive rejections from different places. So you have to believe yourself and keep trying. As long as you believe yourself and you think that your work is worth doing, I think that would potentially get recognized by your colleagues and community. So this is my simple tips for you. I hope you have got something out of it. So now I'm gonna switch to Dr. Mia Lustrea. So Mia, could you take away?
Yes, thank you so much, Ja, and welcome to our, information session on health informatics. You can go to the next slide. So who am I? I'm a tenured professor here at the School of Information. Come from a long background. I kind of ended up in health informatics from a very different perspective here. I'm also the program coordinator for our certificate programs in health informatics at the graduate and the undergraduate level. So I thought that instead of talking to you about my career trajectory is to kind of step back a little bit and talk about health informatics and what that is. And most people, when they come to my classes, as you can see, I teach a lot of the health informatics related courses. Benny was in my class as well. That it covers a wide range of things, but most of the time I get students who ask me, do I need to know programming? Do I need to be tech oriented to get into health informatics? So let me just go over a basic definition that I really like from Brown. He says that health informatics refers to the application of multidisciplinary sciences to transform and not just automate the structure and behavior of health-related systems, organizations, individuals, including not just clinicians, but also patients and providers, professionals, and others who, basically everyone, right? So transform and not just automate. If you can go to the next slide. It's a very, the other slide, domains, right? So it's a very broad field that covers many different subdomains. These are just the more common ones that most people are familiar with. So it can go all the way from bioinformatics that talks about the use of technology to support medical research at the cellular, molecular level, thinking about genetics, etc., all the way to the use of systems to support clinicians like clinical informatics and telemedicine. We're all familiar with telehealth. All of a sudden that's come to the forefront because of COVID, right? Consumer health informatics is related to the use of information communication technology to support patients' health. That includes mHealth and the use of smart devices to support patient behavioral health. Then we have public health informatics when we talk about systems like surveillance systems, et cetera. And then some people are also interested in health information management. And I think a couple of our panelists are going to be talking about their careers in that arena as well. So what I tell my students is, whatever you come, wherever you're coming from, you actually bring something to the table. This is a very exciting field, which is why I got into it. So you can go to the next slide. So where do I, oh, the other slide. Where do I fit in here? So yeah, I do a lot of research, and a lot of my service is also related to health informatics. I serve with Dr. Jaha at the Center for Translational Behavioral Science, where we're doing a lot of cool research. My research focuses mainly on consumer health informatics, telehealth, and clinical informatics as well. And these are just a couple of snapshots of the research that we're currently working on. So I must say, this is what excites me about doing work in health informatics, is the interdisciplinary nature of this and the opportunity to do really cool stuff, all the way from working with clinical informatics systems. Ja and I have worked on a grant proposal to develop a tool to help older adults understand their lab results better. And so we're going to use AI for that. We're also using some mHealth applications to support video directly observed therapy for pediatric heart transplant patients, and so on and so forth. It's just very exciting. And we get to collaborate with a lot of different faculty and researchers from across the university, but also at other universities. So Ja did a really good summary of the tips if you want to become an academician, but these are the reasons why I'm here. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mia, for the introduction. Just want to point out that if you have any questions to any of one of us, you can either wait till we get to the Q&A session, or you can put your question in the chat. I'll be monitoring the chat, and I'll be making sure that those questions are getting answered later on. So next we have Zichen Wang from Amazon Web Services. So Zichen, could you take away?
Yeah, sure. First of all, I want to thank Professor He for inviting me to this event. And I'm gonna share my career trajectory, and hopefully this is going to be helpful to the folks listening here. So I kind of coming from this other kind of background. So I'm a biologist by undergrad training. I have a bachelor in biochemistry and molecular biology. And after graduating, I moved to the US for a PhD program in biomedical science in INFOcon School of Medicine at Mount Sinai. Here at Mount Sinai, I did computational biology. So the program is kind of a general biomedical science track where you can pick your own track based on the professor's research direction. So I did computational biology and some machine learning for high dimensional gene expression data, focusing on drug-induced experiments. So that's really useful for drug repositioning and discovery. And during PhD training, I also did develop some bioinformatics methods and got exposed to some software development experience, because a lot of these softwares requires us to build some sort of web-based applications. After graduating PhD with computational biology, I stayed in the same lab with my PhD advisor and became a research track faculty in the pharmacology department. And during this period, I switched my research direction a little bit to research mostly the Mount Sinai Hospital's electronic health records data, where I did some projects focusing on predicting physiological aging, ranging also to opioid dependence, and also spent about half of my time writing grant applications without anyone getting funded. And that's where I decided to leave academia And then I moved to a company called Semaphore, which is not too far from Mount Sinai, and it's actually a Mount Sinai's genomics spin-out company that's developing genomic testing for either inheritable diseases or for cancer mutations from the somatic samples. So in that company, I worked as a principal scientist in the field of clinical informatics, where I continue work with the hospital EHR data, actually from the same hospital Mount Sinai system. And also I got some exposure to genomics data from that company, where I can leverage the intersection of those two types of data to study diseases, focusing on pregnancy complications and pediatric diseases. After 2 great years working there, I moved to Amazon Web Service, which is a cloud computing company, and working as a applying machine learning scientist at this organization called Machine Learning Solutions Lab. So this is a unique organization within AWS. We are kind of like a consulting organization within AWS, and we help customer to develop machine learning models for their unique business use cases. And here, although the org work with customers from all sorts of industries, I work primarily with customers from the healthcare or life science space. And one of the recent projects that I led was with the Janssen Pharmaceuticals, which is a subsidiary of Johnson & Johnson. And in that project, we together with the customer develop a deep learning methods for protein function prediction. So kind of using a very innovative machine learning graph neural network architecture for predict proteins function. Next slide, please. Yeah, so just some lessons that I learned over my career. Hopefully it's going to be helpful to folks who are interested in health informatics. So I really feel like the domain knowledge in healthcare, whether it's from biology or from medicine, together with the technical expertise in computer science or informatics, is going to help me thrive in this field of health informatics. So really, the people who understand both domains are rare. And for folks who can have this sort of domain knowledge plus technical expertise is going to be really helpful in the career. And I'll quote a Chinese proverb called "the other mountain stone can polish jade." So that means sometimes you can use the whatever algorithms or novel methods from the other domain and apply that to healthcare, and it sometimes can really solve the problem. And another lesson that I learned throughout my career is I found learning is really important, and especially if you learn by yourself and find your own interest. So here I quote a Amazon leadership principle that's called learn and be curious. So leaders are never done learning and always seek to improve themselves. So yeah, my suggestion would be a lifelong learner and always find opportunity to learn. So yeah, that's kind of my takeaway.
Thank you so much, Zichen. Thank you for the sharing. Very helpful tips. So next we have Jeremy Harper, CEO of Owl Housework. So Jeremy, are you able to
hey, can you hear me?
Mic? Yes, you can. We can hear you.
Excellent.
Yeah, please go ahead.
So let's go on to the next slide. Hi, everyone. I hope that you're all having a great day. This is me and my family at a recent wedding. Next slide. got a little daughter and a wife. So this background map is where I've lived over the course of my career. I have an undergraduate business degree from Ohio State. My first job out of college was up in Wisconsin as a technical coordinator for Epic Systems, which is a large hospital software installation company. If you've not heard of it, most of you probably have. Next slide. Went from there to Wheeling, West Virginia, which is in West Virginia's Panhandle. Was an interface engineer, so I worked directly at a hospital, Wheeling Hospital, and there was a huge difference in perspective between a vendor system and a hospital system. And as you're thinking about what type of energy or where you're going to take your career, think about vendor systems are fun. They have lots of energy. They often hire a lot of type A personalities who are really driven, but they also come in and do the one thing that they're really good at, and then they leave. With a hospital, if you're working at the hospital, you may be an expert in one area, but you're going to be working with those same people for potentially decades. And so there's a very different feeling. You're often working on very deep things that are very impactful for a hospital, your local environment, whereas a vendor system, you're often dealing with things that are enterprise-wide. From Wheeling, West Virginia, I moved out to Portland, Oregon on the West Coast for Oregon Health and Science University, got a master's in biomedical informatics, went on to Rochester, New York as a consultant director for some Epic installs. Next slide. And then I landed at Columbus, Ohio, at Ohio State Wexner Medical Center as the Director of Research Enterprise Systems. So I landed there because as I was taking my master's in biomedical informatics, I was going back to Columbus to get married. And my faculty advisor said, oh, I know a chief research information officer out there. Why don't you do an informational interview? And so I wound up meeting a gentleman named Peter Emby, who was the chief research information officer. It didn't have any jobs for me at the time, but we kept in contact. And about a year and a half, 2 years later, he brought me in to do a contract and then created a director position for me there. And so I stayed there for 5 years. After that, I transitioned to Indianapolis, Indiana as the Chief Research Information Officer for the Indiana CTSI, Reagan Street Institute, Eskenazi Health with Epic, and IU Health, which has Cerner. So I had a lot of fun there. Was there for 3 years. And then in January, I transitioned out to do my own consulting thing as Al Health Works. And so it's a small boutique consulting firm where I go get to be a data scientist consultant essentially. And I get to do some fun side projects. One thing that I will warn you about, when you're a geek, if you are of the geek persuasion, you might just think, hey, let's go build things. And so I did a lot with machine learning, as one might in research. And so I decided to train an entire transformer model on successful grants. And so I built a website behind it. And I thought, oh, everyone will come to this because surely it is brilliant. And it turns out that just because you build it, they don't necessarily come. I did this once in the past between being a director of Epic installs and at Ohio State, where I built an entire software system that wasn't successful at the selling side of things. But when you're thinking about your career within healthcare, I think that there are lots of opportunities in lots of different directions. Think about how you're going to add value, think about how you're going to navigate things forward, and spend a lot of time. If you're someone who has a clinical background, spend a lot of time on the project management side, on the IT side. And if you're someone on the IT side, you need to spend a lot of time on the clinical side so you actually understand the clinical workflows, the clinical terminology. If you've never taken a clinical terminology course, physicians will sniff you out the moment that you get in a room with them and you can't follow basic Latin. So that'll be my quick and fast spiel. Hopefully I haven't taken too much time. Thanks. Oh,
Thank you so
general
much.
thoughts. I'm so sorry about that.
Yeah.
You know, you do these slides and you forget. So one of the things that I do want to call out for everyone is the American Medical Informatics Association has a year in review every year. And if you're really into that research side of things where you want to be on the cutting edge, go check out the year in reviews. We have, and it changes sometimes. Peter and Nicholas have been doing it the last couple years, these year in reviews where they go get the top 50 studies for the year, and they kind of do a quick overview of what's going on within our industry and what's on the cutting edge. And then if you're thinking about your own personal career, thinking about whether you want to go towards a vendor or a hospital experience, academic experience, obviously you already heard about the academic experience. Vendors tend to be very fast, heavy hitting. Some, 12, 13, 14-hour days are not unheard of during crunch periods. Hospitals tend to be less of those unless something is going very bad, but hey, it's impacting real people's lives. So it's worth the time and energy. Thanks.
Thanks so much, Jeremy, for sharing the tips. I'll definitely go check out your website about grant writing. And I appreciate your tips about those opportunities for people to get updated knowledge about informatics. So so last but not least, we have Benny Harris, our previous graduate. So Benny, do you want to share some about yourself and your tips?
Sure, thank you. So I'm Benny Harris, and I'm a laboratory informatics IT business analyst with Booz Allen Hamilton. I'm placed 100% of the time at CDC. So my primary, I'm working a lot with state public health labs because those are the entities that are submitting all of our data. Basically, I have two main functions in my role. My first and primary role is to manage laboratory data visualization and access for CDC infectious disease data. So anytime you go get a COVID test or an STI test or a flu test, anything like that, it's getting reported to these state public health organizations, or it's getting reported directly to the CDC. And we're getting all of those specimens, which include, it includes patient data as well, which is why laboratory informatics is a very niche subset of health informatics, in my opinion, because a lot of times they go hand in hand. So these dashboards, Power BI dashboards that we have, they include infectious disease testing quality management data. It could be maps of specimen submissions or testing data. We also visualize storage location information, which is a storage location is basically just where these testing samples are physically being stored in, in a freezer, in a lab, anywhere like that. And these dashboards are really used for, a lot of times they're really useful for non-technical users because, if you're more technical, sure, you can look through spreadsheets or dive into the database. But for users that might not have that skill set, being able to actually see the data that we have available, visualized through Power BI or Tableau, something like that, really helps them with decision making, and at least kind of puts the visibility out there for these decision makers to utilize. And two really big skills that I use all the time for both of my second function would be the laboratory information management systems, also called LIMS, requirements development, and that's for the software. So the database requirements, and then also that front end user interface that laboratory staff and public health staff are accessing to manage their samples. So basically, I work a lot with developers to help them decide, what do we need to get these samples into our system, and then what other functions might the staff need to work with that data or manage the samples. And two of the biggest skills would be like UI or user experience design and relational database knowledge. So structured query language, or SQL, basically. And those are two really big skills that I picked up from the MSIT program at FSU. Next slide, thank you. So the pursuit of laboratory informatics, how did I end up here? Well, I think that, working at the intersection of science and technology is really fun. You get to collaborate with a lot of different people with a lot of different experiences. So we're kind of beating a dead horse. I know everybody has mentioned that, but it really is very interdisciplinary. And so I had a public health and chemistry background before I even entered the program, and I was working with public health departments and then also some other laboratories. That was before I even learned about really databases or SQL or health informatics or anything like that. And then also during my time, I went to a Microsoft Power BI seminar at FSU, and they had a lot of health examples while they were kind of just demoing that software and teaching us how to use it. But that got me really interested, alongside using Tableau in some of the data mining classes and database classes and stuff like that. And then there's also a consumer health informatics course, and I'd done a project involving STI testing as prevention. And that's directly related because all of those tests that are getting performed, we're getting that specimen data in, and then also the resulting patient information as well. So one thing to consider in this industry, especially working for an organization like CDC, is security is huge. So we have that, that PII, personally identifiable information, but we actually keep the patient information off of these Power BI dashboards. As you can imagine, we can't have that data just floating out there, especially the results and patient names and stuff like that. But security is just a big part of that as well. And then also, whenever COVID came around, I was actually working as an IT business analyst for more of a conservation type organization. But I'd been wanting to move back into the realm of health and science. So I figured what better time than a pandemic to hop right back in there and start working for the CDC. So. And some of my favorite parts about laboratory informatics is that you're working with such diverse groups of people with diverse responsibilities, and just the knowledge that's out there and the things that you'll learn from your coworkers and clients and people you come in contact with is just insane. These laboratory information systems are typically, there are some out there that are more specialized, but a lot of them are just very expansive. So all of these skills are relatable to other positions that you might have. And also you're learning about clinical informatics, you're learning about healthcare practitioner roles, you're learning about lab staff, and you're learning about software development and everything that goes into that, and data visualization and just other related fields. But this field also, in my experience, I've probably been in it for about, say, working with laboratories and just scientific staff for about 5 or 6 years, and it's always a pleasant work environment. It's for me at least. I haven't ever felt like super high pressured where I'm working 60, 70-hour weeks, something like that. Everybody is really dedicated to quality and getting it right and providing good data and providing good service, and it's just a really good environment to work in, and also the growth opportunities and job security. I don't think that anyone in this field ever has to worry about not having a place to go, because like we mentioned in some of the other presentations, it's growing rapidly. It is a fast-paced environment just because it does involve software development. And if you're using agile software development, it's typically more fast-paced because you're changing on the go, you're updating requirements for software. And then also, we're changing the data on the fly too. So our data visualizations might change month to month based on what's going to be most relevant to a specific laboratory at that time. And then pretty much every job I've had, they've offered tuition for additional learning, just because they want you to get into analytics. They want you to learn more about science. They want you to be able to provide better services for our users. So that's just something to think about too. And some skills that are great for any IT business analyst. I think especially if you're working in laboratory informatics or health informatics, just knowing, having basic knowledge of all of these relational databases and just knowing even a little bit of SQL is really beneficial, especially if you're in kind of the software development realm, just because software is, it can be really heavily based on the database and different stored procedures, or, doing quality checks on that stuff. It's just it's imperative to know some of that stuff. And then UI and user experience design or knowledge is also really good, because not only are we, working on helping build the database and working with the knowledge stored in the database, we're also making that front-end application where laboratory staff, or maybe sometimes even non-technical staff, are going in to find stuff or log clinical results or something like that. Data visualization software, if you take like the data mining course at FSU or database management systems, you'll definitely come into contact with maybe, I know we use Tableau whenever I was taking the course, and it was really beneficial. Power BI, Tableau, Click, and SAS Visual Analytics are all a little bit different. They are all different softwares or programs that can be used to visualize data though. Each one of them has their own benefits and caveats. And then knowing just like basic statistics, knowing those confidence intervals, predictive statistics, that gets a little more intense. But like means, averages, standard deviation, all of those are really helpful, especially if you're working in Power BI or Tableau, because you can kind of double check yourself and just make sure, that you're providing quality information to the people using this. And then communication is huge for an IT business analyst, because like some of our other presenters mentioned, you really can be between the business or project management side and the technical staff. And one thing I love about being an IT business analyst is that you kind of get to choose what you do. We have IT business analysts that also work on our laboratory informatics team, but they're more project management focused or more business rule focused, and they really like to dive into that. And they stay out of the database 100%. They don't ever go into our database. And then we have some other IT business analysts like myself who, we had that background knowledge in IT, and I'm the first one who, I want access to the database, and I want to jump in there and I want to look at what tables we have. I want to see how they're related. And then I want to get something out there that's usable for everybody. So that, if we're having a group discussion, if we have visualizations, it just makes the process so much smoother. And then I think it's really important too, if you want to go into something in software development or IT, or become an IT business analyst, it's good to specialize. So having that health knowledge or laboratory science knowledge is really big and getting noticed by some of these organizations that are really focused in that. We have IT business analysts that have almost 100% laboratory background, so they don't know much about software development or IT whenever they're coming into work for us. But we have, everybody's very willing to teach and help others learn. And it's just like Jeremy was saying, like if whatever is not your strong point, that's where, you want to go talk to those people so you can get caught up and kind of contribute in the same way. That might be my last slide.
Great, yeah, that's your last slide. Thank you so much, Benny, for sharing this great tips. Now I have a few minutes for Q&A. We're a little bit behind, but I think we still have time for a few questions. And I know, organizing this panel is not easy because health informatics is such a diverse field. As you can see in this panel, we have academic researchers, we have health IT specialists, we also have administrator, company leader, and also doing people who are doing research and but still working in the industry. So there are a lot of different career opportunities out there. I think before, while we're waiting for our questions, let me ask a question to the panelists. How should students prepare themselves for upcoming career in health IT and health informatics? We know that this is a very ever-changing field. There are always new things coming up. How should they prepare themselves for this? maybe we can go ahead with Jeremy. Do you have anything to share? Because I think you are hiring people all the time, right? So you must have some thoughts about what people are looking for.
So I think there is a bit of a difference, just like Benny was saying, in the consulting world, you wind up with deep specialties. So you might have a lab information system person, you might have someone who is a very deep billing specialist. And I think that there is, if I were starting out my career, don't go for the specialty knowledge first, go for the very generalist and understand what's going on, and then start getting the specialty knowledge. Too often people go with specialty knowledge, don't understand all the pieces and parts around it, and then they miss the forest for the trees. And they think they understand more of what's going on in healthcare than what they actually do. And going into a situation, people always need you to have a better understanding of what's going on. If you've only done inpatient, start studying ambulatory, start studying home health. Make sure that you don't just understand one aspect of healthcare. It's a giant system that you need to have some, maybe not specialty knowledge, but just general knowledge of here's how people interact with our systems.
Perfect, thank you. So Mia, I have a follow-up question for you too, like, because you have been doing this education in health informatics for a really long time. What is your thoughts about, like, how do you prepare our students to prepare them for health IT career and health informatics career? And you have been dealing with a lot of students in the past few years.
Oh yeah, since we're located in information school, we do have a master's in IT, but we also have a master's in information. And I was actually curious in our audience, what backgrounds do you come from? And also why you're interested in this particular panel, if you want to type that into the chat. But, because we're dealing, and I also teach a lot of interdisciplinary classes where we have public health students, we have medical students, we have nursing students, communication students, exercise sciences. So they come at it from many different perspectives. So like Jeremy, I would say, kind of zoom out and see what is out there and then see what particular skills you bring to the table that you can develop further to apply in those specific subdomains that we were talking about. So for example, for those in the information sciences, they're often amazed that they can actually find careers, well, not just in academic libraries, but in medical libraries, but also in supporting medical research through supporting things like systematic reviews and conducting meta-analytic reviews. And so they're quite amazed that they can bring that to the table and still call it health informatics. So I think it's just exposing yourself to these different subdomains. And I also encourage them that, this is a context area. There's so many skills that are needed to support healthcare and to develop systems that can actually be meaningfully used to improve patient care and also to improve medical research. And I think that's it. You just be aware of what those opportunities are. And I think they come away from these classes feeling very excited that they have a lot more options than what they had originally thought of.
Great, thank you so much, Mia. I wonder whether Zichen, you have any thoughts about, because you also mentioned that you had some biochemistry background and you also have a lot of experience with computational research. I wonder, in your thought, like how important it is to have the background knowledge, domain knowledge in biochemistry and medicine in this type of work you do, because I often see people with purely computational background with no medical background at all. How would they be able to do the work you wanted to do? Because I think what you do is really exciting.
Thank you for the question, Dr. He. I think the background that I have in biochemistry really helped me communicate better with physicians, like clinicians, when I in the past worked with the EHR data that biology education background certainly is pretty similar to professionals with medicine training. Yeah, and also it's helpful in communicating with chemists in the pharmaceutical industry as well. So yeah, definitely having that domain knowledge is helpful in just communicating with others and also understand the industry better, like the entire healthcare space, whether you think from the provider space, the clinicians or the drug developers, or from also insurance companies. There are also a lot of informatics and machine learning opportunities in those spaces as well. So really having some domain knowledge helps me communicate better with folks from that similar background.
Great, thank you. So Benny, I have a question for you. Sorry, I'm keeping asking questions because I'm waiting for questions to be entered in the chat. But for your question, like I wonder, as a student graduating from this program, what is the most important thing you have learned from this besides those technical skills? Do you think that like having some exposure to human, like because we value human a lot in this interaction between people, technology and the information. So what do you think about that? You do think that that kind of perspective give you another way of looking at what you do?
I definitely think so. One of the most, I mean, just during my program, like any course you take, you'll probably have the option to focus on a health topic, or you can choose your own topic. I really focused on a variety of different health topics. So for example, there's one, I think it's information seeking or something like that, one of those courses. But I really focused for my research project on like information seeking patterns of nurses. So it could be something like that, where you're really diving into that human behavior aspect and kind of getting their perspective on how they're looking for information, which can help you, in turn, develop a clinical informatics system that will be usable for the nurses, because a lot of times these systems are kind of unusable, and especially in laboratory informatics. Don't get me started, but yeah, that's why the industries are growing. We're learning about human behavior and human interactions with machines, and it's all tied in. Yeah.
Great. I think we're a little bit short in time, but I think I want to give opportunity to people to give some final advice to our students. Potentially, if they want to pursue a career in informatics or health IT, what type of tips do you think that they need to have? So we can go by maybe Jeremy.
I think that, at the end of the day, patients are the most important thing that you're dealing with. And if you can see how you're improving patients' experience and what you're doing to impact the world, it really makes a big difference for me.
Perfect. That's a good point. Great point. Mia?
I think I like what Zichen said, be a lifelong learner. And just remember, we're all health consumers. We are all patients. And so we know what we need. And that's what makes health informatics so exciting, so you can actually make a difference.
Great, thanks. Zichen, anything more you want to say?
Yeah, so just not to repeat other speakers, I think if you look at healthcare, it's not only patients, there's providers and insurers, and there are so many opportunities that informatics and machine learning can help in making them more efficient, and finally, hopefully you can reduce the healthcare cost, and that's good for the patients as well.
Great, thank you, Zichen. Benny?
I've nothing major to add, but just if anybody has, any additional questions, or if you think of something later about laboratory informatics or how we manage infectious disease testing and specimen data at the CDC, I'd be happy to answer any questions that you have. And I'll drop my Gmail address in the chat.
Perfect. Thank you. And I just want to encourage our panelists to share their contact information because I just appreciate everything that you've said so far. I also personally learned a lot from those things. As everyone mentioned, it's such an exciting time to join our health informatics and health IT workforce. No matter if you are doing academic research or industry research, or you are pursuing a career in health IT companies or hospitals, I think there are just so many opportunities that we can pursue. You just have to find the best one that fits your interest most. Due to the time limits, we will have to stop soon. But I want to say that thank you so much for everyone for joining this. I'm sure that you have questions, follow-up questions. Feel free to reach out to us. Our contact information, and we'll be here for you. And if you have any problem or questions about educational programs in the School of Information at Florida State University, please also reach out to us. Thank you everyone for attending. Thank you, Kimberly, Jade, for making this happen. And I know there's a lot of work involved in this. I'll see you later. Thank you, everyone. Okay.
Excellent. Thank you so much, panelists, and everyone. Thank you for attending.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us. Bye, guys.
Thank you, everyone. Bye.